Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com and celebrity spokesmodel for the ClassicsToday.com merchandise shop, where you can get Abnormal is Fine, Stupid is Not, for your very own delectation and to show all your friends. Anyway, what are we talking about? Well, this is another in my ongoing talks now of video realizations of ClassicsToday.com insider reviews that allow me to use actual sound clips if you have signed up for Classics Today Insider. If you have not signed up to be a Classics Today Insider at the low price of $49 for the entire year, well then, there's a link at the bottom of this review, in the description of this review, that will allow you to do it. I really believe, and I have to say, that reviews with sound clips tied into them are so valuable, because that's where your credibility lies as a critic, right? If I say something is faster than this, or listen to the trumpet, and you can listen to the trumpet and you hear what I heard, then you may think that I know what I'm talking about. It's such a wonderful thing, because we're talking about music, and you have no idea how many reviews I have read in my life where it is just abundantly obvious when you get the discs that the critics had no idea what they were talking about, or hadn't even listened to the discs in question. Oh, it's so frustrating. And, it's important. We're all talking about facts, not opinions. Of course, whether I like it or not, that's an opinion. But what happens, what the performers do, what the musicians do, that's a fact. And I really, truly believe that the value of the review does not lie in the ultimate opinion. It lies in getting the facts right so that you, the listener, can make up your own mind, whether you like a performance or don't like a performance. So, as I've explained many times, the issue with getting the permission to use sound clips on YouTube is a big issue, but it's not a big issue on ClassicsToday.com, where the classics divisions of the major labels tend to like us and want to work with us, as opposed to the enormous corporate behemoths that run the copyright protection algorithms that are making all of our lives miserable on social media. So anyway, what are we talking about then? What is the mysterious subject of this particular video? Reiner's Richard Strauss, the box. Oh, what a great box this is. Reiner was perhaps, well, there were a couple great Straussians in the 20th century, right? There was Kempe, whose box we'll talk about too, probably. There was Karajan, and there was Reiner before any of them. And my God, he set a new standard, both for orchestral execution and interpretive point in the music of Richard Strauss. And these recordings are still classics. So, there's no worry about what the review is. The review is, if you haven't heard these, you don't know Richard Strauss. That's the review. It's really very simple. And very few would disagree with that. But let's see what's on these 11 discs, because the interesting thing about it is that there's a lot more Reiner Strauss than you think, because there was a whole mono pile of things that he remade in stereo when he went to Chicago. First he was in Pittsburgh, then there are some with Vienna. So there's a good selection of Strauss. And I really think that this is just one of those classic sets that everybody needs to hear. I have to go through with the booklets, because you do get original jackets, but the original jackets do not necessarily reflect everything that is within the disc, because they're original jackets. And so they didn't reprint them when they recoupled them for CD purposes. So let's start with CD 1. CD number 1 gives us, let's see, who's it with and what are they doing? All right, this is the Pittsburgh Symphony. You get Don Juan, very exciting Don Juan. Wow, he gets through it in less than 16 minutes, 15 minutes and 47 seconds, which is really about what it should be. It really, other conductors take up to 18, 19 minutes with it, but tempo matters. The opening should be all youthful fire and energy. And like most Strauss, Strauss was not an intellectual. Strauss was not a conductor given to deep philosophizing. Strauss was a conductor who wants to slap your face with brilliance and then move on. You don't want to have time to think about it too hard, because then you're likely to think that it's all sound and fury signifying nothing, which it isn't, of course. But, it's always better to have it flash by with brilliance. And then we have Don Juan. No, we did Don Juan. Then we have Don Quixote, the other one, the other Don with Piatigorsky, cello. Yeah, yummy. So these are with the Pittsburgh Symphony. And then we get Salome's final scene with Luba Velic, the amazing Luba Velic. She was quite the character. She really was, and a terrific Salome. And so these are classic versions. And you'd be surprised how good the mono sound is on these. They're really quite listenable and enjoyable. Did they give me the dates here? Why should they do that? That would make life far too easy. No, they didn't. I'm not going to worry about it. They all sound fine. Then we get, let's see, Strauss, Ein Heldenleben. Yes, not the Chicago Heldenleben, which is really in a class by itself. This is an earlier Ein Heldenleben. It's not as good as the Chicago one. It's not bad, but it's just not quite as good. And then you get the Bourgeois Gentilem suite, Der Bürger als Edelmann. This is a wonderful performance. A very, very fine performance. Really, really excellent. Again, it's with Pittsburgh. And, it's fascinating how fine an orchestra Pittsburgh always was, certainly from the Reiner era on, and it seldom got acknowledged as one of the, American big fives, but they were always really, really first class. And one of, I think, the United States' best kept orchestral secrets. Certainly they're absolutely world class now and have been for, decades. So that was wonderful. And then we get, really, this is a wonderful disc. This is with the RCA Victor Symphony. You get Till Eulenspiegel's Lustige Streiche, Till Eulenspiegel's Merry Pranks, and Death and Transfiguration, and then 2 excerpts from Der Rosenkavalier with Riese Stevens and Erna Berger. It's great hearing these celebrated singers of yore with fabulous conductors and very good sound. It's perfectly fine. There's something fascinating about these 2 recordings, though, with the RCA Victor Symphony, because they were recorded, I have it here, in 1951, and my gosh, they sound good. 1950 and 51 in mono, but they sound just marvelous. And the Eulenspiegel is one of the performances I compare. It's the performance that I'm comparing in the Classics Today Insider Review, if you happen to be an insider and you go read it. Listen to the excerpts where I compare this RCA Victor Symphony recording to the Vienna Philharmonic Decca version, also by Reiner. Not only is the sound, I think, somewhat better. I mean, it's mono, but I mean, in a sense, in the way it projects the music. But the performances are just as disciplined and exciting. The playing is amazing. It's really a very, very salutary comparison, especially since the Vienna Philharmonic in the 50s, even in stereo in the post-war period, was still kind of rebuilding. There was nothing nothing like as good as they later became in the 60s. So I really think that's a wonderful comparison to make. And one of the wonderful things about being able to hear the sound clips is that you can make selected comparisons. It's not just about hearing the performance in question. It's about hearing the performance in question compared to another performance in question. And in this case, we've got the same conductor. So if you're an insider, go listen to that. You'll enjoy it. I really think you will. Then now we're in the RCA era. And we've got the famous Zarathustra with, the Dance of the Seven Veils on CD 4. Yes, they've spread these out a little bit more because, in the early days of CD and living stereo, they coupled the Zarathustra with Ein Heldenleben on one big, long disc. Now they're shorter discs because they're original covers, which allows them to charge more. But as we've just discussed in a recent back and forth in the commentary. Some people would rather have original covers, even if that means having short playing times. But that's never been my philosophy. I think value for money is more important than ugly old record covers. But that's just me. Anyway, this first Zarathustra was quite famous. However, he remade it, and the remake is better. So we'll get to that in a moment. And then we have Ein Heldenleben with Don Juan. And this Don Juan is about 4 seconds slower than the other one. It makes no difference. It's thrilling. The Chicago Don Juan, which he also remade. There were 2 in Chicago. So we're going to get to those. But this Heldenleben is the Heldenleben. There's never been a Heldenleben like this Ein Heldenleben for excitement, virtuosity, and lack of boredom. I always said about Ein Heldenleben that Strauss should have made a suite for Ein Heldenleben. You know, you do the opening, you do the critics, you do the battle, the love scene, not the wife business, not the awful violin solo. You do the love scene, and then you do the battle, and then it ends. That, to me, would be perfect. But no, it was Strauss. We have to have philosophical disgust at the universe and all of that fin de siècle decadent slop that was happening at that point in our history. So there's more Heldenleben. But performances that get through it and do not let it die are very, very rare. And this was one of them. It is just great, and it sounds every bit as fabulous as it always did. Then what do we have? Oh, yes. Electra and Electra excerpts and some more Salome excerpts with Inga Borch. Inga Borch. She was one of those blood and thunder, verismo German soprano types. And so these Electra excerpts are unbelievably thrilling. I mean, when she dances herself to death at the end there, it's like, oh my God, it's incredible. And the Salome excerpts are wonderful. And we get the Rosenkavalier waltzes. And we get another Bourgeois Gentilem, it's a piece that Reiner did so extraordinarily well. So that's all nice to have. Yay. And then we get, these are the Vienna, which are sometimes on Decca. But you have to remember that Decca, well, let me tell you what's on it first. It's just Till Eulenspiegel and Death and Transfiguration. That's it. These performances, like I said, I don't think are as good as the earlier ones with the RCA Victor Symphony, even though they're in stereo. In those days, Decca had a distribution deal with RCA in the United States. And so they were effectively licensed or co-productions, and they were issued in both formats. And there were quite a few recordings in which that was the case. And so you get the Vienna ones, and they have the rights to do them. And they did. So what the hell? You could make the comparison. What could be bad? So there's like zillions of duplications in here. But, you know, if you're a Strauss fanatic, you're not going to care. Then we get the Symphonia Domestica, which is really a piece of, well, let's just say it's very domestic. And let's see, the Burlesca for piano and orchestra with Byron Janis, which is one of the great recordings of that. And then there's the other Don Quixote with Antonio Yanigro and Milton Previs violin and all these Chicago people. One of the great Don Quixotes. So, you know, what the heck? You can't have too many of those. Then we get the amazing Also Sprach Zarathustra and Don Juan, the remakes. And Don Juan has slowed down a little bit now by about 20 seconds, but it sounds much better than it ever did before. And this Zarathustra is the one for Reiner. It's absolutely glorious, fantastic Zarathustra. And that, my friends, is 11 phenomenal discs of Richard Strauss. I hope this is still available. I know the individual performances you can get. The mono ones were recently reissued yet again in the Fritz Reiner mono box. There was the Fritz Reiner mono Columbia box. I mean, you know, of all of his Pittsburgh stuff. It's nuts the way these things keep coming back. But what can I tell you? Keep on listening, folks. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for becoming a Classics Today Insider if you have already. If you haven't, now's your chance. Take care.